Chevette, and at one of the single talking about is resurrecting me. Coming right back and closing out right here on Gospel Celebration. Don't forget Coffee and Creamer coming right out right here at 9:30. Opportunity with a vision.
This is your one-stop gospel celebration. Thank you for tuning in to Gospel Celebration, your one-stop. The station that serves your community, 1240 WGBB.
Are you having an event that you need a gospel DJ? Well, Go Party is available. That is right. DJ Ace will play at your next event. Whatever the event is, it's only gospel only. So give us a call at 1-516-444-8157. That's 1-516-444-8157. Or drop us a line at gospelcelebration1240 at gmail.com or 1-516-688-9806. All right? And DJ Ace will return your call. Go Party is on the move on your next event. Check it out.
Preacher man, I'm having a problem. What kind of problem you having? There's something wrong with my car.
Well, take it around the corner.
Around the corner?
Yeah, around the corner.
Around the corner where?
186 Pennsylvania Avenue and ask for Deacon Pat.
That's around the corner.
Around the corner auto repair shop.
Oh, really? So what do they do there?
Well, they fix engine, transmission, brakes, whatever you need, they got you covered.
Oh, wow. How do I get in touch?
Well, give them a call, 917-682-2032.
Say it again.
917-682-2032.
So you said 917-682-2032?
Correct.
Wow. So now I know what to do. Take my car around the corner to Around the Corner Auto Repair Shop at 186 Pennsylvania Avenue in Brooklyn, New York.
Something which can set you out. Well, we'll catch you on the other side. Get this afternoon, all right? Take care.
I'm gonna catch him off guard with this one. Listen. Living through rainy days, pushing through every day, realizing that I can't do it on my
Your one-stop gospel celebration. Thank you for tuning in to Gospel Celebration, your one-stop. The station that serves your community, 1240 WGBB. Thank you for tuning in to Gospel Celebration, your one-stop. The station that serves your community, 1240 WGB.
Into gospel celebration with Ace and the preacher man. Get life changing gospel radio ministry. WGBB 1240 AM.
Is WGBB AM 1240 and W240 DFFM. This is WGBB AM 1240
Go
and
Party is on the move.
your bet, and one of the simple talking about is resurrecting me. Coming right back and closing out right here on Gospel Celebration. Don't forget Coffee and Creamer coming right up right here at 9:30. Opportunity with a vision.
This is your one-stop gospel celebration. Thank you for tuning in to Gospel Celebration, your one-stop. The station that serves your community, 1240 WGBB.
Are you having the event that you need, gospel DJ? Well, Go Party is available.
I've heard a couple of you trying to be optimistic about this. Most of you are rightfully angry. I mean, this is one of the most, in my opinion, I don't want to blow this up to be the worst thing ever, but it doesn't, I mean, when you're a respected football team like the Giants, and, you know, their football people, from Jerry Reese to their ownership with, you know, the Mara family, who've been involved forever, you know, you expect a lot more out of this franchise with how you treat a two-time Super Bowl winning quarterback. You know, this guy who, and by the way, when you look at this guy's stats, it's not like Eli Manning is crushing the Giants. You know, for the season, the guy's got like an 85 quarterback rating, which is, you know, middle of the pack. It's not great, but he's on pace for 4,000 yards. He's got about 2,400 yards right now. He's got 14 touchdowns. He's got only 7 picks. You know, this guy was having a good year, and to me, this is all blaming the season on Eli Manning. I know a lot of people are going to say, "Oh no, we're trying to save him. We you know, we don't want him to get hurt. We want him to be healthy next year." And I'm sorry, it's not. This, in my opinion, is Ben McAdoo trying to pass the buck, and he's going to start Geno Smith because nobody's going to expect much from him. You know, you wouldn't have even had to have this conversation if you just started Eli like you would have, you know, normally tomorrow, and then just taken him out at the half if it was looking ugly, or even if you just said, okay, it's a close game at half, but you know, I want to make sure that my star QB doesn't get hurt. That would have been more understandable. Or you know what would have even been more understandable? Okay, you want to throw the towel on this season. So what are you going to do? You're going to start a jet retread? No. How about we start the guy we just drafted last year, Carson Webb? That would have seemed a much more, you know, to make much more sense to me than what we just witnessed. And it's very disappointing in the Giants. I think this is one of the final big decisions that Ben McAdoo will be having a hand in, because if the Giants have any brains in their head, this clown will be gone. And the only way to describe Ben McAdoo is a clown. He's a joke. I'm sorry, Mr. McAdoo. I don't think you're ever going to be getting a spot on Coffee with Cramer. You know, not that you'd want one after what I'm saying about you, but you're a stiff, and you're the worst coach in this city for football, probably since Rich Kotite. Now, you can sit on that and think about it for as long and hard as you want. He's a joke of a football coach, and I don't know where that 11-5 season came from last year, but when you saw the lack of discipline from this team, up and down, it seems like no one respected this guy. He let Odell Beckham Jr. walk all over him, do whatever he wanted, and now, when his team, you know, his team has been up against a wall. They lost their first few games of the season. They were not looking good, but you know, Ben McAdoo, he's compounded every bad turn. He angered his entire defense by calling them out and suspending them, and he's gotten into bickering matches with them on the sideline. The secondary hates him. You know, and a lot of these guys have been saying the right things, you know, ever since a couple weeks back. So I will tip my cap to them that they've been trying to keep it classy at least. But it's got to be difficult. That has got to be a toxic locker room. And I said it earlier this week. with the way the Giants are acting, with the way that Ben McAdoo is handling the quarterback situation, and the way that the Giants ownership is allowing this to happen, to be honest, I think it's finally taken effect. The Brandon Marshall effect. His bite has finally sunk in, even though he hasn't been with the team in multiple weeks. But that that ability to blow up a clubhouse. I'm not blaming him. This is kind of tongue in cheek. I'm not blaming it entirely on Brandon Marshall, but it's just funny, man. This is a situation where the New York Giants they really have to tread lightly because you really awoken a sleeping giant. I mean, you have to remember, Eli Manning is number 2. He just passed his brother 2 weeks ago on the all-time list for quarterbacks consecutive starts in the NFL. There's a couple other names in there in the top 10. But, you know, the 2 quarterbacks are Eli Manning and at number 1, Brett Favre at 297. But Eli was number 2 for quarterbacks at 210. Now you're going to snap that streak. Now, I'm not saying that streak is the be-all, end-all. In fact, when Brett Favre was going for his streak and he was a Jet, you know, he was a little banged up. A lot of people wish that he had just taken off one of those weeks and maybe the Jets would have won one of those games down the stretch in 2008. But this isn't a case like that. Eli Manning is not playing injured. Eli Manning is not the reason why this team is not succeeding this year. As a matter of fact, when you look at Eli Manning's stats and you take into consideration the fact that he has not had Odell Beckham Jr., he has not had Brandon Marshall, and he has not had really any other receivers, the tight ends have been very, inefficient at times. Shepard has been inconsistent, and he's been double covered most of the time because the Giants aren't running out any other receivers. So it's one of those situations where you really have to look at the fact. And when you look at Eli's track record, this is something that really caught my eye last night. Eli Manning has not had what you'd consider a bad year since 2013. And he had a real bad year that year. He led the league with 27 interceptions. But since then, he's thrown 105 touchdowns to only 51 interceptions. I mean, he had a season where he had 30 touchdowns and 14 picks, 35 touchdowns and 14 picks. You know, last year was 26 touchdowns and 16 picks. This year it's 14 touchdowns and 7 picks. So I don't see any bad numbers in there. He's over 60% passing every time you turn around. He's got, he's doing a good job of holding on to the ball this year. I've said it a million times, but Eli Manning is a 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, and he deserves better than this. This disrespect is insane. Now, I want to just lay something on Giant fans real quick, all right? And for the Giant fans that are saying this isn't the worst thing in the world, and I'm not saying it is either, but I'm just saying this is what happens when you decide to move on from your franchise quarterback, which the Jets haven't really had since Namath. But this is since Eli Manning took over the Giants starting quarterback 210 games ago, the New York Jets, their crosstown rivals, have started 13 different starting quarterbacks. Their names are Brooks Bollinger, Quincy Carter, Kellen Clemens, Brett Favre, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Chad Pennington, Josh McCown, Greg McElroy, Bryce Petty, Mark Sanchez, Geno Smith, Mike Vick, and Vinny Testaverde. This is how far back it goes. Vinny Testaverde is on this list. And Eli Manning is being thrown under the bus by his coaching staff and ownership. And the guy couldn't even speak to the media about it. Just what I did to even say those names, which to the Jets, it's like, for a Jet fan, it's like saying Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. When you look at those names and you see how long that Eli Manning's streak has gone for, now he's not going to play for another 13 years, obviously. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that you have to respect this guy that's laid the groundwork for your team, that has won 2 Super Bowls, that has done everything for you, everything you could have possibly asked when the seasons were good, when they were when they were winning double-digit games and making the playoffs and going on these runs, or when they were going 6-10 and missing the playoffs for 3 straight years under Tom Coughlin. He still had that same demeanor. He would still go out there and be your leader every day. The Jets, on the other side of town, We don't have that leader. We haven't had that leader in 50 years. To cast your leader aside like that is a little insane, in my opinion, but also just very short-sighted. Very short-sighted. Who are the Giants going to get in to play quarterback next year? Who? It's not going to be someone better than Eli Manning. I mean, they could take a step in the right direction if they draft a quarterback this year. And you never know what you're going to get, out of a top quarterback, even if it's a top 5 guy. Remember, Mark Sanchez was drafted number 5 overall. So it just shows you how, easily you can swing and miss on a quarterback at the top of the draft as well as anywhere else. But, even if the Giants draft the top quarterback, whoever that may be, out of the draft next year, at least for next year, I believe they'd still be better off starting Eli Manning. And whoever they draft it would be good for them to ride the bench for a year. Learn the ways of the NFL, learn under Eli Manning, there's no pressure on you, and then you're just the heir to the throne. You're not the immediate answer to every question that every fan is going to want to hear. And unfortunately, it looks like they're going to be, I'm not saying that they're going to be moving on from Eli. In fact, what they've been saying publicly is quite the opposite. But, it makes you think. It makes you say, what's Eli thinking? He looked quite emotional about it, to be honest, and he has every right to be. It's a complete disrespect what they did to this team, what they did to this man after everything he's done for this franchise. And to be honest, the Maras, McAdoo, and everyone involved in decision-making, Jerry Reese, should be ashamed of themselves. And I hope that, I don't hope, but I expect this to be the end of Jerry Reese and McAdoo, a package deal at the end of the year. But I could easily be wrong. They could retain one, they could retain both. You never know. But that's just my 2 cents. And all right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our first break of the day. Thank you for joining us here on Coffee with Cramer. Later in the show, if you want to talk about any of the happenings, give us a call at 1-631-888-8811, and we'll be right back.
Hey, padres de hijos con asma, aquí están los Respira Fácil con otro de tus hits favoritos. No fumes en casa, no fumes en el carro, no fumes en casa. Prevenir los ataques de asma puede ser tan simple como hacer que tu casa y tu carro sean zonas libres de humo. Y para nuestro próximo pedido, ¡wow! Esto sí que es una sorpresa. Los Respira Fácil con otro de sus hits. Aspira el piso. Aspira el piso para mantener tu casa libre de polvo, caspa de animales domésticos y ácaros. Para más información de cómo prevenir los ataques de asma, visita noattacks.org. Un mensaje de DGA y el Ad Council.
I'm Dustin Lynch. You don't have to listen to country music to know that life can be full of drama. Some of it you just can't control, like your girlfriend running out on you with your best friend. But there's some drama that you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org.
You just need to take that first step and find free classes near you and start moving towards a brighter future and even your college degree.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, and it's This Day in Sports History, presented by Farrell Sports Bar and Grill. Farrell Sports Bar and Grill is located at 2819 North Jerusalem Avenue in East Meadow, New York. Farrell's is an establishment with a long history, and it's now under new management. If their friendly staff and great kitchen doesn't bring you in, their drink specials during all the games will. $3 shots during games, and it's all top shelf, Wild Turkey, Jameson, Fireball, and more. They have all the local games, Knicks, Nets, Rangers, Islanders, Jets, and Giants, and plus any other game you want. You just ask them and they'll put it right on. Come and enjoy their family-friendly, laid-back atmosphere, and don't forget to try the house sauce of the day if you order the wings. Come down to Farrell's Sports Bar and Grill, open every day at 11 a.m. Farrell's, a great bar for a great time. All right, today, this day in sports history, December 2nd, 1967, Wilt Chamberlain sets an NBA record by missing 22 free throws in one game in a 130-121 victory over the Baltimore Bulls in Philadelphia. On December 2nd, 1981, Fernando Mania continues to hit new heights as the Dodgers lefty Fernando Valenzuela is named 1981 Rookie of the Year, capping off an incredible year where he took home the Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, and went 3-1 in the playoffs en route to the Dodgers' first World Series win since 1965. On this date, in 1985, Chicago Bears head coach Mike Ditka and defensive coordinator Buddy Ryan come to blows on the sideline during a Monday night loss to Dan Marino and the Miami Dolphins. It would be their only loss that season on their way to the Super Bowl championship. December 2nd, 1987, the 334 Club is born as 334 New Jersey Devils fans brave over 20 inches of snow to get to the Meadowlands to witness the Devils' 7-5 win over the Calgary Flames. On December 2nd, 1991, Bobby Bonilla signs a then-record 5-year, $29 million contract with his hometown New York Mets. The 1992 Mets would go on to become known as the worst team money could buy, and Bonilla would be traded just a few years later. Bobby still receives a $1 million payout every July 1st as a result of this terrible contract. On December 2nd, 1995, after being left in to allow a career-worst 9 goals in an 11-1 loss against the Detroit Red Wings, goalie Patrick Waugh declares that this was his last game in Montreal and was traded to the Colorado Avalanche 4 days later. He'd go on to win the Stanley Cup that year, and Montreal is still waiting for their first since Waugh left. And finally, on December 2nd, 2003, the bidding began on the baseball that was deflected only weeks earlier by Cubs fan Steve Bartman. It would only take a few weeks for the winning bidder to claim their prize for the lofty price of $106,600. The ball would then be blown up in a ceremony in a sports bar outside of Wrigley Field. And as we all know, they've buried their ghosts since then. Alright, everybody, and that's This Day in Sports History, presented by Farrell Sports Bar and Grill. Don't forget to come down to Farrell.
Coming from Ty Chevette, and one of the simple talking about is resurrecting me. Coming right back and closing out right here on Gospel Celebration. Don't forget Coffee and Creamer coming right up right here. opportunity with
would have been among a group of candidates considered otherwise. And I think it's going to be interesting. It's going to be, to be quite honest, it's going to be an uphill climb for Aaron Boone because you already have he has to deal with the skepticism of Yankee fans, which is something that's going to hang over his head. I know Joe Torre dealt that in '96, although he dealt it quite well, as they would go on to win 90 games in the World Series that year. And but when you really think about it, bringing Aaron Boone in, like I said, he's got those expectations to live up to from the fans, but from ownership too. When you think about it, this team went to Game 7 of the 2000 of last year's ALCS. Now, how is Brian Cashman going to spin it to Yankee fans if, now let's not even say this team doesn't make the playoffs, right? But let's just say they end up in the wild card game again. What is he going to say if this team gets knocked out in the wild card game next year? Now, I know, especially a front office guy, a smart front office guy like Cashman isn't going to overreact and fire him. I mean, Steinbrenner's not in charge anymore, so you wouldn't have any rash decisions like that. But, it's something you have to think about. Yankee fans are going to be very, very angry if there's any regression this year at all. And I know it's kind of hard to say, but in your first season, it's World Series or bust. And for a Met fan, that doesn't, that's unfamiliar language. If the Mets, I feel like if the Mets were in the exact same situation, say Willie Randolph was canned after Game 7 of the NLCS in '06, and say they brought in Jerry Manuel or something, or whoever would be the man to replace him after that, I don't think that the expectations would be, even with that Met team, with as good as they were, I don't think the expectations would have been World Series or bust. I mean, Met fans would have said it and probably would have believed it, but in the end, if they didn't win the World Series, it wouldn't have been the be-all, end-all. To the Yankees, it's the be-all, end-all. That's the only thing, finishing second in place with the Yankees, there's no runner-up trophy for the Yankees, and even if there is, they don't want it. That's one thing that I respect about Yankee fans, actually, and it was something that really annoyed me as a kid. But with Yankee fans, they don't want to mess around. Yeah, okay, they'll hang their hat on, getting a Game 7 for a couple of months here. But by spring training, they'll have forgotten about that. They'll be on to 2018, and they don't want to hear any excuses from ownership coming from the Steinbrenners. They don't want to hear any excuses from Cashman, and they're not going to want to hear any excuses from new manager Aaron Boone and whoever his lieutenants in the dugout are. It's something that that they, on social media when I'm looking at it, it seems Yankee fans are pretty split on the decision. It seems like, a lot of them are, they haven't thought about Aaron Boone probably since they traded for A-Rod. I mean, it seems a lot of them are trying to be, I want to say optimistic, but they want to kind of be the, I guess it is optimistic, the half-glass filled guy. But then again, you have a lot of these Yankee fans that are saying to themselves, man, how did we get ourselves in a situation where we have such a respected manager in Joe Girardi, and now this year we're going to go into a season with the guy in Aaron Boone who we don't know anything about. I mean, even with Girardi, even with the Yankees' old managers, you think about this too. Joe Torre had a long track record before the Yankees hired him. He managed for the Mets, he managed for the Atlanta Braves, he managed for the St. Louis Cardinals, so he had that long track record. You had a guy like who was hired before him in Showalter. Showalter didn't have major league managerial experience, but he came up through the Yankees system. He was a manager in the minors. He was highly touted for a couple of years before he eventually got the job. And even Girardi. Girardi spent a year on the bench with the Florida Marlins, where a lot of people forget. that he beat out Willie Randolph for Manager of the Year in a completely ridiculous vote. But for his 78-win team that year, Joe Girardi won Manager of the Year, and he definitely deserved consideration. I don't know if he deserved it in the end, but it just goes to show you what a good manager Girardi is. And look at those last three managers. I believe I said this in the year before. Showalter, in my opinion, he's going in the Hall of Fame, no problem. Joe Torre, he's already in the Hall of Fame. And Joe Girardi, it's probably a little too early to say he's a Hall of Fame manager, but he's got a ring. He's got extensive postseason experience. He's got multiple. He's finished over 500 every year in his career, but that one with the Florida Marlins, and he could be on his track to being in the Hall of Fame one day, as long as he sticks around and manages, 20 years, whatever, and he gets all the years and gets all the milestones that you need to hit. There's no reason that Joe Girardi should not be a Hall of Fame manager when it's said and done. I know it's a little ridiculous to say right now, but you know what I'm saying. So basically, the Yankees have the last three managers with Hall of Fame potential. One of them already in, and you're going to turn around to a guy now, and you're going to try to explain to a fan base who the last manager with this kind of track record they've had is Stump Merrill in 1991. It's going to be tough to try to sell the fan base on that. It really is, and that's something that the Yankees really have to keep in mind. The expectations are high, and when you have this team, when you have a team like the Yankees where they're young, and they're up and coming. A lot of this reminds me of that mid '90s Yankees run where they went on a playoff run the year before. They changed managers. There's a lot of skepticism coming into this season now with the new manager. A lot of anxiety from Yankee fans, you could say. But when it all came down to it, they did exactly what they needed to do. They got the guy they wanted, whether we wanted to admit it's the right man or not. They got the guy they wanted, and Yankee fans are just hoping it's as a successful hire as Gene Michael when he picked, as they said, Joe Torre got flack from every newspaper in New York when he was hired. He was called Clueless Joe. He was just this guy who from down south who, with the Braves who had very little success down there. He had no success at the Cardinals, and obviously with the Mets in the 70s he had nothing, but he had no team then either. So, this is just something the Yankees are, they're going to have to live with. They're going to live and die with this pick one way or the other. Aaron Boone is either going to be the right guy or he's not. So he's either going to be here for the next 10 years or the Yankees will be going through this process again in another 2 or 3. And that's, a lot of questions. Well, now the Yankees offseason officially begins. Let's see. Are they going to put some punch behind this guy? Are they going to give, they didn't give it to Girardi his first year, but Girardi's second year as manager, they added, AJ Burnett, CeCe Sabathia, Nick Swisher, and they went out and won the World Series that year. So my question is, are the Yankees going to do that again? And there really isn't a big treasure trove of free agents this year, but maybe a guy like Ohtani comes into that, and you don't got to spend $150 million on him. If he would have waited another year and a half, he would have been able to. But now he's just going to be a regular minor league signed free agent, and it's going to be very interesting. The future of the New York Yankees is hanging in the balance, and we now know the man that's going to captain and lead it all. That's Aaron Boone, former third baseman of the New York Yankees, and it's going to be a very interesting trip on the way to spring training. And all right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our second break of the day. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us right here on Coffee with Cramer.
How to be a great dad in 15 seconds. Bike ride, go fish, walk in the park, phone call, milkshake, play catch, picnic, fly a kite, tell jokes, laugh, talk, read a story, tell a story, bumper car, swing set, bowling, pillow fight, cut loose, stay tight. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
I'm a volunteer at United Way. I'm asking people around the neighborhood what they think this place needs.
Wi-Fi everywhere.
More playgrounds. More ice cream trucks. I was thinking more money in the pockets of local families come tax time.
Can I change my answer?
I was just kidding about the ice cream. When it comes to getting better tax refunds into the hands of local families, what this place needs is you. To donate or volunteer, go to unitedway.org. Because great things happen when we live united. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
When I have an asthma attack, I feel scared. It's kind of like an elephant is on my chest. I feel like I'm choking. Sometimes my parents have to take me to the hospital.
You know how to react to their asthma attacks. How to prevent them. Visit www.noattacks.org or call your doctor. Because even one attack is one too many.
I feel like a fish with no water.
Brought to you by the EPA and the Ad Council.
All right, everybody, and welcome back right here on WGBB, 1240 AM, 95.9 FM, it's Long Island's oldest radio station. Also, don't forget to check us out on the AM 1240 WGBB homepage. Check out Coffee with Cramer, listed under featured shows. Also, check us out on Twitter at Coffee with Cramer, COFFEEW Cramer. And hear all of our old shows in the SoundCloud, Coffee with Cramer /SoundCloud. You can give us a call at 1-631-888-8811. And give us your thoughts on the Yankees' new manager, on what you think about Eli, or anything along those lines. What you think the Mets should do. All right, well, we came back into the twist because that's what a lot of Knicks fans were hoping and praying for. When Kristaps Porzingis went down hard on Tuesday night at Madison Square Garden. That was a major spill. He took 2 minutes into the game. It was horrifying, quite frankly. I wasn't watching it live, but I was coming back and I got the update on Twitter that he had went down, and when I saw the replay, I was absolutely horrified. It looked like it was broken. People were talking about season-ending injuries on Twitter and on social media. And, luckily the basketball god smiled on the Knicks this time, and the x-rays were negative. There was no structural damage on the ankle. So, thank God, we can say that Porzingis is going to be healthy. He might miss another game or two, but I'll take that. I'll take him missing these games every day of the week up until, So, you can miss games in December. Just, stay healthy for us when we need you in March and April and down the stretch. So, they play the Orlando Magic tomorrow at the Garden tomorrow afternoon, so I guess we'll see in the meantime. But, his teammates were not deterred by their big man going down as they knocked around the Miami Heat on Wednesday to a 115-86 victory. It was a big victory as Cantor led the way with 22 points and 14 rebounds. The Knicks won a very evenly distributed effort for their team. They're playing good D. And obviously it's a bit of a short-change Miami team. With the Knicks, it was just it's something that you need to see from them. They have to keep this consistency up, especially at home. Dropping that game earlier this week to the Portland Trailblazers was just an ugly, ugly loss. You cannot have losses like that if you want to make the playoffs. And, when you lose at home like that, how are you going to be taken seriously on the road? Because you won't be a threat to anybody until you can win in their building, too. Toronto, they definitely got a new respect for the Knicks. after the Knicks smacked them at the Garden last week, or the week of Thanksgiving. So they definitely got a new respect for them. But I think that they know that during their what's it called? During it, when they play the Knicks at home, basically is what I'm saying. When they play the Knicks at home, I'm sure that they are in great fear that the Knicks are gonna, put up a big fight against them. And excuse me, but the Knicks got to keep chugging along. This is the difficult part of their schedule is not even coming up yet. Most of the games they've played in recent weeks have been at home as opposed to, the road games. They're going to have a lot of road games coming up in the next month and a half. And they just got to play 500 ball. In the Eastern Conference, in the NBA, that's all you have to do to make the playoffs. You have to play 500 ball. You have to make sure you can win a couple of big games away from the Garden. Defend your home court. You cannot go out there and be a 500 team at home and be feared. They're not going to let it happen. It's one of those things where you have to prove that you can beat anyone at any time on any night. And like I said, the hard part of their schedule hasn't even come up yet. And they're still just a game over 500. Next week they play Indiana, Memphis, and Chicago, with two of those three being on the road. And it's something where those are three teams. Obviously, Memphis is in the West Coast, but those are three teams that you really have to fatten up against. I know Memphis isn't that bad a team, but you really have to get at least two of those three wins. If the Knicks can come out of this week, and then, that's not including the game against Orlando tomorrow, which might be tough because KP'd be out. But, it's something that the Knicks are a playoff team, in my opinion, and they just have to, they really have to just keep it up. And, it's difficult in the NBA, especially when you have a big man like Porzingis as your main player, because you have to make sure that you keep their feet healthy, that their legs healthy. You have to make sure you keep his head healthy, and don't burn him out on back-to-backs. And it's going to be a tough stretch. And I'm interested to see if Jeff Hornacek is up to it, because remember, this team was 11-10 last year. They were 14-10 before it all came crashing down last year. So let's keep that in mind as we think about the New York Knicks and the potential that they have. And real quick, I'd like to turn my attention over to the New York Rangers, who are currently 14-10-2, sitting in a wild card spot in the East. And they got bad news yesterday when they got to the arena, as the top line center Mika Zibanejad will be down with a concussion for an indefinite amount of time. That stinks. That could be a few games, it could be a few weeks. But his teammates shook off that bad news and went out and dominated a Carolina Hurricanes team for the second time in 10 days. Losing Zibanejad, who's their top line center, you're not going to replace that guy. Guy's got 22 points in whatever it is, 26 games. He's got 11 goals. He's been one of the Rangers' bright spots. Not that they've got guys like Grabner, who had a hat trick last night in a great game. Let's talk about that game for a minute, actually. Last night the Rangers won 5-1 at the Garden. Grabner had a hat trick. They were down 1-0 after one, but Lundqvist shut the door. These guys didn't even sniff a goal for the next two periods, thanks to Lundqvist. And the team just exploded. A hat trick for Grabner, like we said. You had a couple other guys like Smith and VC added assists. It was just a great all-around team effort. And in a tight Eastern Conference, you need every single point you can get. Especially when earlier in the week the Rangers are coming off a 5-4 loss to Florida at the Garden. You can't lose to Florida at the Garden. If you want to be a playoff team and you want to be taken seriously, like we were just speaking about the Knicks, you cannot lose that game to Florida. It's almost unacceptable. And, it's one of those situations where the Rangers were down 3-0 after the first period, which you very rarely see, especially with Lundqvist as locked in as he'd been lately. He had a rough game, and okay, you can't knock the guy from one bad game. So they go out there, they come back, they tie the game. It's 4-4 now in the third period late, and they allow a late goal. Pavlik couldn't stop it. I gotta tell you, I'm not overwhelmed with Pavlik. I think the Rangers would be better served reaching into their minor leagues to find the answer. This guy Pavlik, he makes me nervous. The Rangers had backups in the past like Steve Valiquette and Cam Talbot or even Andy Ranta, and they were kind of the guys where you would always expect them to make that save when. And I know it's kind of crazy because, you expect that out of Lundqvist too, but with a lot of those backups that we've had over the last few years, you expected the guy to make the save because they just always did. And now you see a guy like Pavlik, I kind of feel the opposite. I kind of feel like I expect him to give it up. When he gave up that goal in the final minute of regulation earlier this week against Florida, coughing the game up, which wasn't all his fault either. The defense was like Swiss cheese that night, but he could have made that stop. And I'm sorry to say for Pavlik, but it seems like he's prone to be giving it up in a Rangers uniform right now. He's 1-4. He's got goals against over 3.5. So it's kind of he's had very limited playing time now. So I'll give him that. And I think 2 of those losses are in relief actually too. So. I guess the Rangers are going to give him the benefit of the doubt, but to be honest, I'm not overwhelmed with this young man's play so far, and it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for the Rangers to try and find themselves back a goalie. Like I said, in this tight Eastern Conference, you need every single point you can get. The Rangers jump back after being down 1 last night. They scored 2 goals in the first 2 minutes of play in the second period, and they never looked back. And, you could tell the Rangers were really feeding off each other last night. And they don't play again now until Tuesday night. And they'll go into Pittsburgh. And they'll go into that match on a little bit of a roll. No doubt about it. This team has been, aside from the hiccup at the Garden earlier this week against Florida, and those 2 losses a week or 2 ago against Columbus and Chicago on the road, the Rangers have pretty much won every game they've played in November, except for those 3. And you can really thank Lundqvist for a lot of that play. Michael Grabner has just been incredible, man. This guy, he scored 27 goals last year, and he had a very good playoff run too. But now he's got 27 last year. He's got 13 this year. So this guy, in less than 100 regular season games, already has 40 goals as a Ranger. And when you have Toronto Maple Leaf fans scratching their head, and even Islander fans, this guy could not find the back of the net. His last year as an Islander and his only year with Toronto. I think he played 81 games in Toronto and only scored 9 goals as a 4th-line guy. Well, AV's running him out there right now. He's got 13 coming off a hat trick last night. And it's really incredible to see. This guy's always in the right place at the right time. He's the empty net kid. He finds that empty net better than anybody I've ever seen. It's like a homing device in that puck when it comes off the stick. And it's been a pleasure to see him. I'm so happy that he didn't get picked by the Vegas franchise, because it would have been a shame to lose him and all his value on the not only on the 3rd and 4th line, but on the penalty kill, and he's been getting a couple power play minutes too. Not many, but they've been sending him out there, and I wouldn't mind seeing more of it myself, to be honest. And the Rangers, there was a great win last night, and like I said, they'll be playing again on Tuesday, so I look forward to that. That'll be a lot of fun. And all right, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we're going to take our next break. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Thank you.
Cuando me da un ataque de asma, siento miedo. Comienzo a toser. A veces mis padres me tienen que llevar de emergencia al hospital.
Ya sabe cómo reaccionar a sus ataques de asma. Aquí está cómo prevenirlos. En el internet visite www.noattacks.org o consulte a su médico, porque inclusive solo un ataque es demasiado.
Me siento como un pez en agua.
Traído a usted por el EPA y el Health Council.
Alright, everybody, welcome back, and this program is brought to you by Universal Armor Systems. Universal Armor Systems is a personal armor company that has revolutionized the ballistics industry. It's the new generation of personal protection apparel, and it's made from the world's lightest and strongest fibers. Their products are lightweight, flexible, and have outperformed all the current body armor that's being used today. Universal Armor Systems products are state-of-the-art bullet and fire-resistant technology. This is life-saving technology at its best. Universal Armor Systems. Saving lives is what they do. For more info, check out their website at universalarmorsystems.com or contact Steven at steven@universalarmorsystems.com. That's Steven, Stephen, at universalarmorsystems.com. Alright, we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen.
You feel petrified. You're struggling with your mortgage payments, not knowing what to do. You do nothing. But if you do something, you're far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making Home Affordable is a free government program. Call 888-995-HOPE to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about your options. Call 888-995-HOPE or visit makinghomeaffordable.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Treasury, HUD, and the Ad Council.
Alright, everybody, welcome back, and now it's time for the NFL picks in Week 12. I've been having a good year this year at my picks overall, but we started off slowly in the NCAA, but now I've rebounded, and my season record stands at 11-7 in the NCAA, and after a 2-1 week last week, I'll improve to 16-10-1 in the NFL. Well, I'll be starting off with the NCAA, as I'm taking Ohio State today, minus 5.5 in Wisconsin. I think, Ohio State, they've had a tough time covering the last few weeks. I think it's crunch time now. I expect them to get it done, and I think they'll be winning today, at least by a touchdown. So I could see 5.5. I think they'll get the job done, no doubt about it. On the other hand, I'll be taking Oklahoma, minus 7, over TCU, Texas Christian University, and two very good teams, no doubt about it. Although I expect Oklahoma to win, I think Oklahoma is so tough to beat. We saw earlier this year what they did against Oklahoma State, when they had, Oklahoma State was putting up 50 points, and they got bested because Oklahoma put up 60 points. So, it's going to be an interesting matchup, although I expect Oklahoma to come out on top. Sooners, minus 7. As we turn to tomorrow, I'll be taking a game that's not much of a surprise, as I'll be picking against the New York Giants and Geno Smith. I'll be taking Oakland, minus 7.5, over the New York Giants. I fully expect Oakland to win. If this was in Giant Stadium, I might have a different feeling about it. But Oakland minus 7.5, I think that's a pretty good bet. Seattle, the Sunday night game against Philadelphia, I'll be taking Seattle plus 4 over Philly. Philly is on a roll. I love Carson Wentz. I think Carson Wentz is a great quarterback, and that Philadelphia is a very dangerous team. We could see we could very, very well be seeing another Eagles-Patriots matchup, the first time since 2004 in the Super Bowl. We could be seeing that with the way it looks. It would not surprise me. But Philadelphia going into Seattle, Seattle's going to be a bit desperate after losing. Uh, I think Seattle will win the game outright, but I'm also taking them with the points. Seattle +4 over Philadelphia. And Philly's made me regret picking up against them a couple of times this year, so I guess we'll see how they handle it. And as for Monday night, we'll be taking the Pittsburgh Steelers -6 over the Cincinnati Bengals. That's a game where Cincinnati has not impressed me this year. Pittsburgh has been up and down, but I think Pittsburgh will come up big and lock it down. So I'm taking Pittsburgh -6, Seattle +4, and Oakland -7.5 for the NFL this weekend. And that will be our NFL picks for Week 12. Thank you very much for joining us here. And I want to stick around on the NFL as we turn our attention to the New York Jets, the New York Football Jets. And, I didn't get a chance to get into them before because you have everything going on with Eli. And, I wanted to get the Yankees in quickly. I didn't want to make the Yankees a last-second cover. But the Jets, a 4-7 team, they're not exactly top of the news anyway. As I mentioned earlier, they blew an opportunity, a golden opportunity against Carolina. They were down 12-3 early, and it was looking hopeless, but they stormed back. Robbie Anderson had a huge day, catching both a 33-yard touchdown before the half and a 54-yard touchdown after the half. And boy, how great was that? Was that big touchdown right coming out of the half? You saw there was a little bit of there was a little bit of people not being sure what to do, but I gotta tell you, there's a little bit of miscommunication, it looks like, up there, but they got the job done. He aired it out. Josh McCown pointing and chucking it down the field, just doing a great job, showing a better arm than Jet fans are used to, at least. And it was great to see, no doubt about it. And then so the Jets led 17-12. Going into the fourth quarter, they were down 18-17 after Jonathan Stewart punched one in from short yardage. They missed the 2-point conversion, so it was 18-7. Catanzaro, who has been fantastic kicking field goals this year, he kicked one to put him up 20-18. But I think the Jets could have got more, obviously, as the refs screwed Austin Safarian-Jenkins again. Now listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the Jets lost this game because Austin Safarian-Jenkins' touchdown was overturned. But what I am going to tell you is that it completely turned the momentum around. It screwed the Jets up big time, and it's just another ridiculous call. I said this earlier in the year. That is a touchdown at every level of football except the NFL, and not for a good reason. It's a ridiculous. I can't stand these calls. And the NFL, when you want to look at why the ratings are down, and you want to talk about the president, you want to talk about the protests, you want to talk about this, you want to talk about that, how about you talk about the ridiculous calls and the insanity of every single time something happens in a game? You have to say, oh, is it going to come back for replay? Oh, is this going to get returned over? Is this going to, when you have to sit here after every single play and wonder if what you just watched is going to stand, it gets annoying, and it takes the fun out of the game. It really, really makes me sick, to be honest. But, like I said, that's not the reason why the Jets lost. Undisciplined play has just been insane with the Jets this year. The only team that has more penalties than them in the league is the Seattle Seahawks. And, they really have to work that out. You are not going to win in this league if you make penalties. And the Seattle Seahawks win despite their penalties. But the Jets don't have that kind of team. When you're a team like the like for instance, the Kansas City Royals. Now, the Kansas City Royals, when they were World Series contenders, were a much better team than the Jets are right now for their sport. But what I'm saying is, the Kansas City Royals would not have been in the conversation even if they were committing errors and had the worst infield defense in baseball, and things along those lines. There are certain things you have to do in your sport to win. Basketball, you better play good defense and hit your free throws. Hockey, you better make sure that you play good defense, and it always comes back to that, and have good goaltending. And don't commit stupid penalties. And it's the same thing in football. You cannot commit stupid penalties. And Steve McClendon getting that roughing the passer call at the end of the game against Cam Newton is the definition of a stupid penalty. It's undisciplined, and that falls on the head coach, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying that Todd Bowles could have done anything and strapped a chain around McClendon and stopped him, but what I'm saying is that, when you have an undisciplined team, and it's a trend. It's not like that Steve McClendon roughing the passer call was the only call that hurt them all day. It happened all the time, and to be quite honest, as a Jet fan, I'm getting sick of it, and you can't have that. You can't have that going, and it's something that all Jet fans at this point are used to. Well, the Jets will be playing Kansas City tomorrow at MetLife at 1 p.m. The last time they met was last year, a 24-3 beatdown. The last time the Jets, the Jets lost 24-3. The last time the Jets defeated them was 2011, a 37-10 victory. After this doesn't get easier, they go to Denver and they go to Superdome after this. So say your prayers, Jet fans. At 4-7, it could only get worse. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, we're running out of trouble here. I'd like to thank you so much for joining me here today on Coffee with Cramer. This has been my pleasure to sit here and talk to you as we get started here on the road to Christmas, and as we're finally in December, and there's a little Tom Petty with Christmas all over again for my man Trevor behind the board. Thank you, Trevor. You're the best. And, stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, for Opportunity with the Vision with Mr. Samuel L. Jackson next. Thank you for joining us again for Coffee with Kramer. I hope you enjoyed it. You can check us out later today on SoundCloud.com. And, pay attention to our social media and Twitter and YouTube. Thanks for everything, ladies and gentlemen, and have a great weekend. I'll see you next week.